I'm Juan Williams, along with Candace Owens, Jesse Waters, Kennedy, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Lots of breaking news to cover on the immigration battle in D.C. President Trump holding an event with angel families. You'll recall they are Americans who have lost relatives to crimes committed by people in the country illegally. Take a listen.
We call these brave Americans the angel families. Angel moms, angel pops. These are the angel families. Your loss will not have been in vain. We will secure our borders.
Much more on that later in the show, but first, we want to remember a legend and a friend. Dr. Charles Krauthammer, who passed away yesterday at the age of 68 after a battle with cancer.
The biggest error that we make is to lose the damn war because we refuse to recognize who the enemy is and what it requires. For God's sake, why do you have to talk about that? The mourning is over. The Shiva is done. And if you're a conservative, you should be optimistic. I think it'll snow in hell before the DOJ is going to go after her. We all were expecting it. It didn't happen. That was the dog that didn't bark.
Charles was the leading conservative thinker of his generation to many. He touched so many of our lives right here at the Fox News Channel. I got to tell you, I often found myself on the opposite end of the opinion fence from Charles Krauthammer. That was the case for just about a decade on Special Report. Charles was also, like me, a huge baseball fan, and last night, Charles was honored at Nationals Park in D.C. So, when people outside of Fox ask me about Charles, I think it's very hard sometimes to explain to them how he touched so many of us because they think, oh, how could all you guys know him? But Jesse had a very special relationship. Jesse, explain.
Well, I was a producer for The O'Reilly Factor for many years, and it was my great honor to produce Charles Krauthammer for about 5 of those years. So once a week, I would get on the phone with Dr. Krauthammer, and I would transcribe his talking points about Bill's topics for that night. And then I would absorb the talking points, and I would go to the bar later and repeat them as if they were my own to sound smart. And I loved doing it. And I also remember for years I would DVR Special Report. Right. And then I would fast forward to the All-Star panel at the end, fast forward through you. No offense. And then I would just listen to Charles. And what the difference with Charles compared to any other commentator, when he spoke, everything went quiet. And you listened, and you never interrupted Charles. Not even O'Reilly interrupted Charles, and that's a pretty tall order. Even my liberal mother liked Charles Krauthammer because he had a way about him. He was so rational and so respectful. He was never disagreeable. And you could always kind of, as a liberal, disagree with him but not hate him, and he was never ever attacked, if you ever realize, from the left. And it shows the kind of the depth of his power because he was honored by George W. Bush, the Nationals, Benjamin Netanyahu. I had friends texting me randomly, I'm so sorry to hear about Charles. He really had such a great impact. I remember the first time I met him face-to-face, I was in the D.C. bureau, and I had just come back from one of those crazy Waters Worlds, and I was all cocky, and I rolled into the green room, and Charles, in that kind of low tone, says, "Jesse, thank you so much for allowing me to be in your world." And he said it with a wink and a smile, and it just really made me laugh.
So, Kennedy, we were in the green room, and you said something about what Charles meant to you that really caught me by surprise. I was taken by it. It was wonderful.
Well, there's something so incredibly positive about what he did, which was he opened a window of mourning and let people in on the knowledge that he did not have long left in this world. And there's something so sweet and honorable about that, because if you think about it, the only time we really talk about people in these glowing terms is after they pass. But if you actually allow someone into the end of your life so they can celebrate you and let you know what you've meant to them while you're still living, that is so incredibly profound, and it is such an amazing gift that very few people are capable of giving so many people, and he was able to do that. He had the confidence, and he had enough respect for himself, his audience, and his very close friends and colleagues here at Fox, and I think we will be forever grateful for that, not only for so many people having the opportunity to reach out to him, but also as an example to other people that you can take this on with a degree of positivity and comportment that we rarely see. And I hope people see that as an example, and they're not ashamed of passing on to the next realm, because, you know, as people of faith, and there are a lot of people of faith here, we embrace the afterlife, but we're terrified of dying, and there was such bravery and strength that Charles showed going into that.
You know, I always thought, and the reason your words touched me, is that I always thought the idea that someone who was paralyzed and living in a wheelchair, for him to just what we do, to come and be commentators on television, to write a column, boy, he was terrific about it. He never was self-pitying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I mean, he had to face something every day that was beyond his own disability. It was people that he met that weren't aware that he was disabled until they met him. And because when he was shot at Fox, you know, you couldn't tell that he was in a wheelchair, and I think that was his choice, because he didn't want that as any kind of interference. And so when you meet him, maybe you didn't know. And I remember one of my buddies made a joke about should Charles go on Dancing with the Stars, and I said, you are such an a-hole. And he had
let this, whatever happened to him in his life, actually affect him. And in a weird way, it turned into an asset for him, because it made him a man of ideas, because he was limited. He was in a chair for his entire life, and he made his achievement come from here. Everything was about ideas. And the other thing I would just mention is that we do live in a time when more people are healthy, they live longer, there's less disease, there's less poverty, but we have an increase in suicides. We see people that are dealing with inner demons, and I think that's why he is so inspirational, is because he has every excuse to hate life. Every excuse. He did the opposite. He embraced it. I don't think I could be that man. I honestly do not think I could be 10% of Charles Krauthammer.
Well,
maybe
you know,
8.
That's the definition of courage, I think.
Yes.
When people stand up in the midst of dire circumstances. Candace, what do you think?
I exactly agree with everything that you guys said here. Despite his disability, he will be remembered as a man of great fortitude. You know, his character, his strength, his virtue. People from both sides of the political aisle coming together and honoring this man shows you that he was a person of tremendous character. And look, he was happy with his life. And I think that that's the most wonderful thing. The wonderful takeaway here is how happy and content he was with the life that he lived.
Well, you know, it's interesting for me, because I knew him for so long. I knew him before Fox even. And I'd say 2 things about Charles. One is that the sense of spirit and human kindness that came from Charles Krauthammer was no pretense. You know, you'd introduce him to people at Fox, and they would be like, oh, Charles Krauthammer, and he would be like cracking jokes and open with so many folks, just very warm. And by the way, Jesse, going to a baseball game with Charles was literally people coming up to him, because he gave structure to so much conservative thought. A lot of conservatives felt, hey, this is the guy, this is the intellectual that is able to frame conservative thought in such a way that the liberals and the left has trouble with it, that they finally feel that here is an intellectual of the right. Some people call them neoconservatives, but it was Charles who talked about the Reagan doctrine in terms of America globally standing up for freedom, for security. He talked about a Bush doctrine in terms of going into war. He gave the framework. And going to baseball, Jesse, with him, not only did you see that people were thanking him, conservatives thanking him for doing that, but you learned that the learners who own the Washington Nationals love Charles. So here we are, you know, you go in Charles's specially made van going down South Capitol Street, and here we are. I want you to take a look at that picture again. That's Charles on the big screen over the stadium last night as the Nats were playing the Orioles, and there was a moment of silence. But if you drove then and you think, oh my God, is this guy going to crash this van? But you get to Nationals Park, and he had the best parking spot, Jesse, because the learners had a parking spot for him in the stadium. And I was like, gee, how come I can't get this stadium?
Yeah, Jesse now wants to find out actually to get a van.
No, and I know a few people that have driven with Charles, and it was probably one of the most frightening things.
Yeah, that's what I
Wait. Charles is driving.
He drives.
I don't think people are aware of that.
Oh, yeah.
Like when you're saying a van, the assumption is that maybe somebody is driving.
No.
He's driving it.
Specially equipped van.
Yeah.
Yes, a specially equipped van. And I used to joke, I've said this before, that, you know, the most expensive car in the Fox parking lot didn't belong to Brett or Britt Hume or me, anybody. It belonged to Charles Krauthammer.
There you go.
Kennedy, though, you really think he was a man, a personification of courage
Yes,
to
absolutely.
America.
And what an incredible example. And I do hope that in addition to some of the writing and the philosophy that he imbued in his writing, people also take away the incredible lesson at the end of his life and internalize that for their own in the future.
That's so sweet. Thank you, Kennedy. For more on the incredible life and legacy of Charles, please tune in tonight for a Fox News report. Charles Krauthammer, in his words, at 9 p.m. Eastern. The latest on immigration, next on The Five.
Immigration battles heating up in Washington as liberal and media talking points crumble before our eyes. It turns out the crying 2-year-old migrant girl featured on the cover of Time magazine wasn't actually separated from her mother, according to the father. Meanwhile, President Trump holding an event with angel families whose loved ones were killed by illegal immigrants.
We're gathered today to hear directly from the American victims of illegal immigration. You know, you hear the other side, you never hear this side. These are the American citizens permanently separated from their loved ones. These are permanently separated because they were killed by criminal illegal aliens. These are the families the media ignores. These are the stories that Democrats and people that are weak on immigration, they don't want to discuss.
And extreme rhetoric from the left continues. Actress and current candidate for governor of New York, Cynthia Nixon, has some harsh words for ICE.
ICE has strayed so far from its mission. It's supposed to be here to keep Americans safe, but what it's turned into is frankly a terrorist organization of its own that is terrorizing people who are coming to this country.
Wow, well, we'll get to that in a minute, Greg. But this 2-year-old migrant girl who was featured by the media for about a week as the standard bearer of a child separated from her mother was not actually separated from the mother. The mother took the child away from the father, away from other children in Central America, not for any asylum reason, but just to have a better economic life, brought her here, was never separated at all. And all of a sudden, Time magazine is defending this, and they're okay with that.
They actually believe that if you attack them for being dishonest, that you're politicizing it.
Yeah.
I saw that defense. It's like, we lied, but how dare you accuse us of lying? You're just making this into a political event. They try to create a poster child for hate. This is all about demonization. The confirmation bias has steered the media into lying over and over again, which is why no one trusts them and why Time is now thinner than Donny Deutsch's spine. I want to bring up Donny Deutsch because we didn't mention him in here, but he said that all Trump supporters are no different than Nazi prison guards if you support them on immigration. So now he's deemed everybody evil. You have to understand that when you call somebody a Nazi, you're giving other people license to hurt them. So that's what Donny Deutsch is doing, and I have not heard a peep from MSNBC about this. That is dangerous stuff.
Cynthia Nixon's doing the same thing, Candace, when she's calling ICE agents terrorists. I mean, comparing them to ISIS, to Al-Qaeda, that, again, gives license to people who knows what they're going to do.
Right. I feel like what they're missing the point here. They're missing the point of Trump's presidency, this America First concept that we're talking about. What he did here is really tremendous, bringing out these families, these angel families. We never hear the left's outrage. We never hear the names of all of the families that were separated permanently, as he said, permanently from their children because of illegal immigration. This is why their outrage is never taken seriously. And look, let me say on behalf of all conservatives, nobody wants to see a parent separated from their child. That is awful across the board. That's not what we're saying here whatsoever, but the selective outrage here is what needs to end.
There is some selective outrage to the Kate Steinle point we made the other day, and also the border agent who was killed by a gun that Eric Holder's team allowed to walk across into Mexico. You just don't hear the similar type of outrage when Americans die at the hands of illegals, when you have people separated at the border temporarily. I
think you do, but I think that the problem here is the context, Jesse, which is that In fact, the crime rate among illegal immigrants is lower than the crime rate among people who are born natives of our country. But there's a selective attention, I think, by President Trump on illegal immigrants and crime because he has made them whipping boys. And I think that's unfortunate.
Well, I don't know about that. I think people want the laws respected, and they don't want people coming across and harming American citizens, because those types of crimes can be prevented because they shouldn't be here in the first place.
Well, it's also, I'm going to defend ICE a little bit because I think they have the toughest job. They really do. And they're the ones who are torn. And when you have a zero tolerance policy, there's really no discretion that they can use. And, you know, they have to become very good, like instant in the field psychologists trying to discern if people are coming to this country because they're scared, they're hurt, and they're desperate, or if they really mean to do people harm. And, you know, we have so many layers of bureaucracy that are completely damaged, that are not functioning properly, and a lot of that rests on the shoulders of these ICE agents. So for Cynthia Nixon to say that they're a bunch of terrorists, I think is incredibly short-sighted and naive, because they're torn between an administration that's having a tough time messaging and a Department of Justice who's saying the opposite of what they're told to do by Homeland Security. So I think, you know, they really are between a rock and a hard place, because they are the front line. And we have to find a better way of allowing people into this country who want to work. And if that means changing the immigration laws, Democrats better stop being hysterical about this whole thing and craft some immigration policy that makes things less chaotic and more clear.
Let the Republicans work cooperatively on a bipartisan basis.
We did not elect President Trump to defend Mexican illegal immigrants that want to come into this country for a better opportunity. We elected him to defend Americans, and that's exactly what he's doing.
But he's also said, he stood at campaign rallies and said, we need more people working in this country. We need to allow people from other countries to come into this country. Legally. And if that's the case, that's fine. The immigration system is broken, and when you put more restrictions on legal immigration, it makes it much harder for the president to fulfill that promise of delivering labor.
You're such a Miranda.
I'm a Charlotte, and you take that.
No, you are a Miranda. I'm a Charlotte.
All right, ahead. The mainstream media is going wild over the First Lady's fashion choices. We're going to break it down next on The Five.
Stop me now. I'm having such a good time. I'm having a ball.
That's right. First Lady Melania Trump under fire by critics for wearing this jacket with lettering on the back that reads, "I really don't care. Do you?" Well, this happened while she was on her way to visit migrant children separated from their parents at the border. The media, of course, went into a frenzy. Watch.
That she would go down there and do this, it tells us everything that we need to know. I mean, she's officially the Marie Antoinette of this administration. It should just say, let them eat cake.
A week ago, the Washington Times wrote a piece saying never before has there been as beautiful or graceful a First Lady as Melania Trump. I guess she wanted to flush that down.
Maybe it's a moment of true candor from her. I mean, this administration doesn't care about these kids.
I'm going to guess this is one message she did not steal from Michelle Obama.
Oh, ouch. Celebrities also attacking the First Lady. Chelsea Handler tweeting, Mrs. Trump is speaking, quote, broken English in a, quote, dumb jacket at the border. And Kathy Griffin claims the First Lady knew what she was doing, while, of course, dropping an expletive. So creative, Kathy. Candace, you love this story.
I do. And look, I have to agree. I was a little outraged because the jacket was out of stock when I went to go buy it. And I do feel that her responsibility is to make sure that if she's going to put on a jacket that causes an earthquake, that we can at least go and buy it.
How much is it?
$39.
That's it?
But it's $39. Yeah. And this, again, talks about that selective outrage that they have. This is the same week, mind you, that Peter Fonda tweeted insinuating that there should be pedophiles in a cage to go after Barron Trump. Silence from the land of celebrities. That she puts on a Zara jacket and they absolutely lose their minds.
Yeah, but the Zara jacket was saying something, wasn't it?
She was going, yes, she wanted to be comfortable on the plane. I think that's what it said.
No, I think, you know, so, I mean, my instinct actually is first just technical matter, which is, why didn't her staff say, hey, Mrs. Trump, this is not good. You're going to visit children, and it's going to open you up to a lot of incoming criticism from people who don't like you or don't like the president, whatever, and certainly don't like a policy of separating children from parents. So I was kind of like, well, why didn't, and then not only that, Kennedy, she wore it a second time. So she wears it going down there and then she wears it going back on.
She didn't wear it in Texas. She wore it
at either end. So the question is, I mean, like Stephen Colbert said, when his staff saw it, they thought, this is a fake. This is not a real, it can't be real. And then when it's real, it's like, oh my God, well, what do we do with this? Because, people are going to attack, it's left-wing media. But you know what? I think this is really, I just don't understand how you can be that lacking in sensitivity or sensibility. You think that's an appropriate message?
It is an odd look, but Jesse, there was an obsession when Mrs. Trump was out of sight for several weeks, and now that they've found her, they can't stop disparaging her. Why is there such an obsession over her?
Well, one of the reasons is that Melania doesn't speak a lot in public, so she doesn't give the media a lot to chew on. So when she's quiet or when she's laying low for a while, things start spinning and they start, flushing out all these conspiracy theories. The jacket, it would have been easier if she'd explained it. She didn't. It's obviously a provocative statement. There's no way Melania wore that to say, I don't care about migrant kids. And for the media to impugn her motives and her character is ridiculous. Everybody knows Melania cares about the migrant families. Everybody knows she has a heart. And she's going down there to show she has heart and to check in on how these migrant kids are being treated. With that said, you know what? She could have done without the message on the back of the jacket, and that would have been fine. It was a little distraction, but the media is always going to try to harm her because they don't like her husband.
Well, but also her husband often leads the media where he wants to go, and perhaps the First Lady is doing the exact same thing.
You hit the nail on the head, Miranda.
No, it's Charlotte, Samantha.
Miranda is, you're Miranda, I am Charlotte. That very message on the jacket created the eruption in which the response is the jacket. It was perfect performance art. When you, at the end, the message is, I really don't care, do you? Is the message. And somebody goes, look what you have on your jacket. I really don't care. And that's it. And the thing is, because her actions are actually counter to the message. I mean, it's like, she really doesn't care about this? No, actually, she tweeted that she didn't like the separation, and she went down there to visit. So her message, her actual actions are not what the deed is. So I think it was just some kind of, it was a manufactured, intentional trigger to set off the mind readers in the media. What kind of evil person would do this, But there she is, doing good. Smart lady.
You know what's interesting?
I like her.
No leaks from...
She's not a Miranda, Kennedy.
So,
no leaks from her side. Maybe her people should start running things at the White House.
It's a jacket.
I think that's absolutely right. But, if she made a statement, she could probably squash the whole thing. But her office has also not leaked. So it's very impressive in that regard.
Maybe that jacket prevents leaking.
Yeah, the president tried to explain it.
Care about that.
Yes. Yeah, he tried to explain it and it didn't work because it didn't match what she was saying.
Well, he just likes to troll the media, and the media falls for it every single time.
I'm just amazed that it's only $39.
It's just a jacket.
Most of her stuff's a little more pricey. Huh?
I know she wore a $51,000 coat. That's how you do it. That's comfort.
You don't wear a $51,000 coat when you're traveling to it.
I don't, but I would nick it from her if I could.
It's out of stock.
Typical Miranda.
Out of stock.
Not the Miranda. Never. Well, the end of free speech as we know it may be upon us. A shocking leaked memo reveals the ACLU could be wavering in its support for the First Amendment. Details next.
Controversy brewing at the American Civil Liberties Union as a leaked memo reveals waning support for the First Amendment. According to a confidential memo obtained by the Wall Street Journal, ACLU staffers write, quote, our defense of speech may have a greater or lesser harmful impact on the equality and justice work to which we are also committed, end quote. This memo also notes that free speech can cause marginalized groups harm by undermining their civil rights. Quote, speech that denigrates such groups can inflict serious harms and is intended to and often will impede progress toward equality, end quote. ACLU is responding to the leak, saying it will continue to defend the speech rights of the unpopular, whether they agree with them or not. Greg, Is this problematic?
Oh, I love the word problematic. the most popular word among people who are about to destroy you. What you just said was very problematic. You're expelled. I mean, this is scary. The last defense of free speech is falling. The ACLU, they're the guys that are supposed to stick next to the worst people. I mean, they defended Nazis, right? And I mean, I think this explains...
Illinois Nazis.
Yeah. The worst kind? Is that what you're saying? But Dave Rubin had a good tweet today where he said that the Democratic Party is being eaten by the left, and decent liberals need to find a new home, because the home right now, this oppressor versus oppressed ideology, is making almost everybody an oppressor, except for oppressed few, who will now then turn on each other in this identity politics world, and it's frightening to see this happening on campuses by young people.
Absolutely.
Young people.
I agree. Jesse, this document was marked confidential attorney-client work product. They went through great lengths.
So we know it's real
this.
and it's true.
Right.
I would think that it seems like they care more about feelings than about rights. And it's a rights-driven organization, and it's scary because they're so concerned about equality of feelings, not equality of rights. And they're also worried about the marginalized people. Now, these people who are marginalized, I mean, if you probably add them all up, there's more marginalized people than non-marginalized people. But if you keep treating marginalized people like children, they're going to remain marginalized. I think every adult in this country can hear something and be okay and not have to run to mommy. Like you said, they have defended the KKK, the Westboro Baptist Church, the worst people in the world. They protest at military funerals, the Washington Redskins logo on, they've defended, and even terrorists in Guantanamo Bay. So the core mission is still there, but I think they're getting caught up in, these identity politics word games, and it's destroying their credibility.
Absolutely. And Juan, do you think if this memo goes into effect, it will disproportionately affect one political party over the other? Do you think that there could be a little bias seeping in there?
Wait a minute. You mean you associate neo-Nazis and white nationalists with one party? I wonder which party that might be.
I'm talking about free speech.
Antifa? Well, let me just say that when you look back at something like Charlottesville, we're coming up on a year after that you can understand why people are starting to think, well, gosh, historically, the ACLU has had people drop off the board, complain about them because they have done exactly what you've heard, defend the KKK, defend people who were Nazis, and people say, well, that's the ACLU. They have to stand up for the First Amendment rights of free speech. But in the current environment, people are now having second thoughts, saying, wait a second, you are really standing up for hate speech. And guess what? Hate speech is a legitimate part of speech. Now, we know you're not allowed to yell fire in a crowded theater. I don't think they've ever tried to defend that. And so the question becomes, at what point are they simply becoming an arm of people who are acting in un-American, in fact, antithetical to American values way? And should the ACLU be putting money into defending that kind of speech? That's a real good question.
I once shouted theater in a fire.
What do you think, Kennedy? Can speech actually inflict harm, and should they be doing more to prevent certain kinds of speech?
Subjectively, yes. You can feel harmed by someone else's speech. That does not mean that someone has objectively harmed you.
Right.
And the ACLU, in defending the First Amendment, was objectively defending something that was an umbrella that covered everyone. But now there are groups that take these slights subjectively and say, regardless of intention, this has hurt me, and I internalize it this way. And so it becomes the application of subjective groupthink. And that becomes the marginalizing principle now, because if you have certain aspects that you no longer defend because you're worried that they're going to offend certain people, that means that it is an unbalanced application of what your charter is meant to do and what the ACLU was meant to do in the first place. And that means if they really do apply these new standards, these new politically correct standards, and there are a lot of people who despise some of the things that the ACLU has defended in the past. But defending is not condoning, but if they give that up, it just means that we are in such a hyper-polarized world.
I think the slope gets incredibly slippery, especially with college campuses having safe spaces against free speech. Hate speech is way too subjective of a term. Everything that is considered offensive, just like you brought up, Jesse, will start to go into this box. But don't go anywhere. Fan Mail Friday is up next.
Yay!
You're in.
Yes, you just want to chicken dance to that, don't you? Fan Mail Friday.
From Groundhog Day?
What? Enough out of you, Kennedy. Facebook question from Karen L. If you were to sell something door to door, what would it be? One.
Boy, I think I'd be a failure at this. You know, I mean, I always think, how do people do cold calls? I don't know. And how do you show up at somebody's door, especially today? I mean, there used to be a day in America of door-to-door salesmen.
Yes.
But today, that doesn't exist. You'd be like, dude, get out of here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You know, you should sell hugs then.
Hugs?
Yes, I'm just here to hug. And give them away for free. Why sell them? Candace, what would you?
That's really difficult. In this day and age, door to door, or just in general, if I could sell something?
Maybe it's something, the question is something that you really, really like that you wish other people would have. That's what the question is.
I know what I would do. I would sell guns, and here's why.
Oh, my God.
No.
Help us, Lord.
You knock on the door, and you say, look, I have all these weapons. I think you need to buy some weapons. It's unsafe here.
Jeez Louise.
And they're going to buy.
Well, you know, without violating federal law. Hashtag two-way, don't get me wrong. I would sell either chocolate because everyone loves chocolate.
I don't like chocolate.
If they didn't buy it, I would eat it, and I'd be fine with that. I would eat it all
high
night
on your
long.
own supply.
You get another shot.
I do not like chocolate. I genuinely don't know what I would sell. I would be terrible at
All
this
right,
job.
see, I would
This is
sell.
not how this works.
Right.
Yes,
That answer.
I would sell a book, Healing Back Pain. I bet people at home know what that is. Do you ever, what's his name, Sarno?
And Howard Stern was...
Yeah, I would sell that book because every time I give that book to somebody, they get rid of their back pain.
I
Wait a
can't believe
second.
you weren't going to
Who's that?
sell the monologues.
By the way,
What are you
I would
thinking?
sell. I would sell the Gutfeld monologues, which are available now, by the way.
So my idea for you is that, you know that guy you mock all the time who has ads on Fox News Channel about catheters and gold?
Oh, you mean William Devane?
Yes, that's the one.
He just advertised last year.
He just sells gold catheters.
Oh, gold catheters. All right. This is from JP Adams, Instagram. What song puts you in a good mood? Kennedy.
Instantly, it's Fergie Glamorous.
Ah.
Something about the positivity of that song and the beat G-L-A-M. I know it's not punk rock. I know it's not cool. I don't care. She feels it, therefore I feel it, and I run so fast I break my foot.
Jesse?
I like the last song that you bumped in with. Can we get that again? Candace and I were kind of rocking to that beat right there.
That was good polka.
What was that?
That was polka.
Polka.
Yeah, polka's a forgotten art music.
It's on the comeback trail.
Yeah, it is. What do you think?
You know, the other day we had a bump song, wasn't it? Like Friday Night Just Got Paid. I like that. That's fun. That's upbeat, right?
Yes.
Bruno Mars tends to be upbeat type stuff, you know, uptown funk and all that. I like that kind of thing. But I like Oh Happy Day, and I know you guys will think that's crazy,
that's a fun
but
song.
it's a very positive song.
How about you, Candace?
So it's either Bruno Mars, Uptown Funk, or Kanye West, Ghost Town. I'm not saying that because I'm Candace
Yes,
Owens.
you are.
I'm not. I'm being serious.
Shameless.
His album is amazing. It actually is #1 in 83 countries. I'm not the only one
I'm
who
torn.
thinks that.
It's either Honey Bucket by the Melvins or It's Raining Men. All right. It's a joke.
Which would be very dangerous, but still quite fun.
Yes, I don't condone Raining Men. All right. Kate L., Facebook question. What is your favorite ride at amusement parks? Candace?
Absolutely. Whatever roller coaster is really high. And I actually hate it. So it's bizarre that I do it, but I make this really bad face. And I like to be tortured on these roller coasters. So it would
Isn't
just
that weird? That is weird that people...
It's really weird. I don't like it.
Yeah, you don't like it, but you still do get excited. All right, Jesse.
I'm going to go roller coaster too, and then I like when they get the photo of you, and then you look at the photo and your face looks like all mangled like that. That's good.
Yeah.
What are you going to say?
I was going to make a joke
What are
about
you
your
gonna say?
face, but then I thought, you know what, I'm going to...
That's just not nice.
Yeah, it's not nice. Kennedy?
I like anything at Cedar Point. It is a fantastic amusement park. They have the steepest, fastest roller coasters in the country and in certain parts of the world. And I also like Superman at Six Flags. You get shot straight up, 400 feet.
Oh, I don't like that.
And then you're
A lot of people have
suspended.
died on that ride.
It's maglev, so you're instantly shot up.
Greg
and then
is
you're
not
suspended
allowed on
looking
that
at Six
ride.
Flags.
There's a height limit there.
And I did not make the face joke. I realized I made a mistake. I should have made the face joke. All right, Juan, what amusement park ride?
Well, I think the answer would be bumper cars. Because remember when we went we went to Hershey Park?
Yes.
And we were like bumping into each other, boom, boom, boom. I mean, and you find out who's aggressive. There's some very aggressive.
Yes. Dana.
Yes.
Dana was
exactly
an animal.
Right.
Well, I can't call her an animal, but she was very, very aggressive. I was going to say the teacups.
I knew it.
I love the teacups.
Yeah, tilt-a-wheel. How about tilt-a-wheel?
Tilt-a-wheel, yeah.
When people start to get upset stomachs
and they're
you're
puking.
like, wait a second, I don't want to be tilted in the wrong direction here.
Last, we got time for one more question. Shirka Burka. I don't even know what that means.
Shirka Burka?
I have the fake name. I shouldn't read the names. What would your personalized license plate say?
H2OS. Waters.
You thought about that, and that is problematic.
Oh, your dad has it.
Yeah.
That was way too good.
Wow. That's so funny. Kennedy?
It would probably say Kennedy, because I'd have to lose some letters because someone's already got Kennedy. So it would be a bastardization.
Watch your mouth. This is a 5 o'clock hour, Miranda.
Samantha.
Juan?
So, you know, the kids like to mess around with me and they call me Dr. Black Ice.
Ooh.
Yeah, so because, you know, you're slick and you don't see it kind of thing.
I feel like mine would be something cat related, maybe just meow. I just love cats so much, so I feel like anything that could just be cat related would make me really happy.
I thought you were going to say Yeezy.
And you know what? Wrong time. I should have made that plug. Yeezy. Yay.
I just wrote mine down to be RTV 547. I would like to have a vanity plate that is just completely non-vanity.
That's not the
point. It sounds like Star Wars.
Ah, then I got to change
Star
it.
Wars 7 or something?
Not a fan of Star Wars. Not a big fan of Kirk.
I hate to say that. No. We're going to get a lot of hate mail for that.
Yes.
Come on.
Why do you like the Ewoks?
Yes. One more thing is up next.
I love to polka when I'm dancing with my sweetheart. I will always.
Time for fun. Time for one more thing. Jesse.
Well, Gutfeld's been crushing it on Saturday night, so I did the only thing I know how to do. I went back to the streets, asked some basic questions of average Americans. Here's a taste. Who is the vice president?
I don't know, and I really don't care.
Oh, oh my God. Oh, man.
Can I give you a hint?
You can tell me.
Mike
Bloomberg.
So there it is, Waters World. Saturday night, 8 o'clock Eastern. Check me out.
No shortage of dum-dums.
It's always
Makes me
fun.
feel better about myself.
All right, so I got some good news this week. I won the Washington, D.C. Society of Professional Journalists Award for the best weekly columnist.
Nice.
The column appears on Mondays in The Hill, thehill.com, and I want to thank my editors, Niall Stanage, Bob Cusack, as well as the publisher, Jimmy Finkelstein. There's been a lot of criticism of journalism in the news lately, fake news enemy, the American people. But we're lucky to live in a country where honest journalism and different opinions are available to us all. And that's the basis of an informed American people, and we are the basis of this great republic. So hats off to the First Amendment. ACLU, watch yourself. Greg?
Gotcha. All right, my book. If you haven't purchased it yet, you might be going to hell. Go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Simon & Schuster. Order the Gutfeld. It's all, I do believe in hell. I'm in it right now. Anyway, Greg Gutfeld Show, 10 p.m. Saturday. We are crushing it, Jesse, and your little man on the streets aren't going to stop me. 10 p.m. I got Emily Campagno, Joe DeVito, Kat Timp, Tyrus. It's going to be a great show.
Wow. Yeah. Gotta watch. Kennedy.
Well, if there are two things I love in this world,
Me?
it's three things. It's Greg Gutfeld, iced tea, and fast food. Unfortunately, at a Raising Cane's in Kansas City, Missouri, a woman got awful creative when she was stirring the iced tea. She did it with her arm, including her hand, inside the iced tea jug, and then she poured it into the dispenser while a coworker filmed the whole thing and laughed, and then it went viral on social media. Of course, 1.2 million people so far have seen this disgusting display. You don't know where that hand has been, but rest assured, it hasn't been washed in half a decade.
So this remember there was some, I think she was a rock and roll star, and she went and she took a lick off of a
Ariana Grande.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of.
This grossed me out.
Yeah, but these people
These are not good one more things. I don't want to see sick things.
Good.
Oh,
where are the
All right, so
do you have a cat?
Wait, for a good one more thing, we go to
Candace.
This is actually just going to make you give up on humanity, but this is amazing and should be discussed.
Too late.
So a food vendor sold an unusual product in Vancouver, British Columbia. He literally sold hot dog water for $40 a bottle.
Yum.
He claimed that it increased brain function, makes you look younger, helps you lose weight, increases overall vitality, but it was just a piece of performance art.
That's what I would sell door to door, Greg.
Actually
Yes, that's
bought
what I would
it.
do.
This is what I would sell door to door.
It is water.
People actually bought it at $40 a pop.
Beautiful.
And his fine print was hot dog water in its absurdity hopes to encourage critical thinking related to product marketing.
God bless a free market.
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
But bottled water is a scam in and of itself.
Literally
It
hot
really
dog
is. We're
water.
actually, if our grandparents, well, if some of them are alive, but if your great-grandparents were alive and they said, you're actually paying for water, they would be outraged. Outraged, I tell
If you package it pretty, Americans will pretty much buy anything,
That is
unfortunately.
But you can make all of those claims. I think it's hysterical. But you know what?
It is hilarious.
I actually believe it. I think hot dog water is quite
I wonder if someone drank it.
I would like hamburger water.
But I mean, it's
I would like water.
It's a lot like the thesis that, there's a sucker born every minute, but that makes it performance
Jesse,
art.
water. There should be
his Republican colleagues to wait and